So hi everyone, I'm actually based in San Francisco, so I hope you can see my semi-Golden Gate Bridge background. I'm going to focus this, so as I said, I'm a professor here at CEDIM, and I actually worked, I come from the industry. I've worked for 20 years as head of international product and growth at LinkedIn, at SurveyMonkey. Before that, I did Google Maps and Earth products. But my background before that is localization, so very much content and product experience adaptation, and really strategic adaptation to international markets. So I'm going to focus the talk today very much on that global ready and geo-fit strategy, which really we have to think about it very strategically and very holistically. It's not just language support, it's not just product experience, it's really, we want to be global ready at scale so that we can scale quickly in platform, product, and people. And I'll focus my talk on those three elements. Before I start, so how many of you actually have already started international expansion or considering international expansion? You can wave your hand. Volumes of the room. Okay, 2 people. Anyone else? 4. Okay. So really the way the way I like to think about international expansion is really if you're just a startup starting up, and you're building your company strategy, your org structure, your platform infrastructure architecture, your how you see the product kind of vision, it's really important to have a global ready perspective. Reason for that? Simply because even if you're just working domestically, just so that down the road, you are able to scale for other markets quickly, and you don't have to refactor the code and start from ground zero like many companies do. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So a lot of companies would say, our top corporate core objective is global growth or growth in general, right? We want to scale our growth capabilities. And when we talk about growth, really, what we are really saying is we want to provide lifetime value, because growth is, we want to see it from a continuous perspective. It's not just new signups today. We want to have sustainable, consistent global growth. So we're talking about providing lifetime value. Lifetime value is very difficult to achieve, right? Because it's not just answering for local current gaps, providing innovative solutions for them today. It's also forecasting the future gaps, the future industry trends, and then being able to respond quickly enough before your competitors do to answer for those gaps of tomorrow, right? So you need to have a very, very wide, broad perspective of what it is you're solving for, and to do that not just now, but to be able to measure those trends in the future, right? And that is extremely hard to do. And this explains why only 5% of the global multinational companies actually succeed in sustainable global growth for the long haul. Only 5%. So what we're going to look at today is really what differentiates those 5% from the rest of us, from the rest 95%. What do they do that most others don't? And the way I see it, it really boils that down to that. It's making that leap in the vision, in your strategic vision, from just kind of you're building your prototype product or service, you're testing it, in your domestic cohorts. International expansion or global growth is not just about, most companies see it as, okay, now we've established our prototype, there's a product concept proof. So now international expansion is really about having our international customers understand our incredible, amazing product and service, therefore translation, right? Language support, at best localization. But most companies do that. They do the first part. At LinkedIn, we were able to measure that in a low, let's say if you're starting in English, that's your source language, and you're reaching out non-English new markets, we do see up to 2x growth after in a low English proficiency new market, after the launch of your localized version, within the first year of language launch, but then after that, growth flattens. So we do know that we need to do something beyond that, right? Which is more about having your product strategy, your service, your value proposition, understand your customers wherever they are, right? And really integrating their cultural and regional factors in your strategic plan. What we want to achieve with global growth is not just new signups. We want to achieve people who don't just know about a product, right? We want them to know a product, discover them effectively, and then actually, really buy into their value proposition strongly enough so that they actually want to pay for a product, and not just pay for the product, but renew subscription, right? Continue to pay for the product for the long haul. And not just that, we want them to not just retain, rediscover us, pay, retain. We want them to also evangelize. We want them to continue that viral loop and be our brand evangelists. That is a lot to ask. That is a big, big task. So really good. Sustainable growth, which is really at the top core objective of most companies, is extremely, extremely hard to attain. So today, in the next kind of 30 minutes, I'm going to provide some case studies and talk about the core ingredients of what does that look like. So really, you want to ask yourself 3 core questions. First of all, who and where are you optimizing for? Right, really understanding what cohorts, who is your target addressable segment, what age cohort, gender, sector, industry, seniority level, and so on. And then what is the region you're really optimizing for? So identify that first. The second thing you want to identify is what you're optimizing for. That's really your value proposition, right? Your what problem you're solving for. Really really sort of focus, zoom in on that, because many companies struggle with identifying exactly what it is, what is their competitive advantage, what exact problem are you solving for. Once you identify that very clearly within your competitive landscape, you're better positioned to then now reposition that effectively for your addressable customer in your target region. So who and where you're optimizing for, what it is you're actually optimizing for. And then number 3 is how you define and measure success. Your KPIs, your success metrics, they will be, as you can see, one feeds the other, right? If depending on what cohort customer segment you're prioritizing for, the region, the value proposition, those elements will dictate your KPIs, your success metrics, what it is you're gonna actually prioritize for your most important initiatives that you're actually gonna put your resources and budget behind, right? That is a really important that is the gist of global growth strategy, and you will be surprised how very few companies actually do that effectively. Another thing which we'll look at in a second is when you set your success metrics, your KPIs, make sure that those are really customer value success metrics and not vanity hooks. Right? A lot of companies actually chase the wrong rainbow, if you like. They set up the wrong or sort of misleading goals and misleading KPIs. For example, if growth is their priority, is what they're optimizing for, they might they might optimize for new sign-ups, for top of funnel efforts, but the way they do that, it might be, through vanity hooks versus customer value. And that will translate to really losing your new customers, basically having that leaky bucket. You're having new customers coming in through the top of funnel, but then you're losing them at the bottom of the funnel because you're not providing the right value for them. So let's take a look a little bit at what does that look like. So if we're looking at the holistic kind of full circle customer journey, unique user journey, we're identifying the market and the new markets we're going to prioritize for. It might be, domestic Mexico. We then, working on discoverability and new engaged, new quality customer acquisition, new signups. Engagement is the next step. We want to engage our new signups. We want them to convert to paid. We want the paid the paid customers to then renew subscription, or move up, upsell to the next to the higher premium paid plan. And then we really want the holy grail is really here at the very top, is brand loyalty, right? So let's look at a few examples of how success metrics were defined and measured by different companies. What did that translate into? So at LinkedIn, for many years, we had these success metrics 4x4. Obviously, LinkedIn is a professional social media. It has a network effect. It has a viral loop. It really growth feeds on virality. So the way we measure engaged signups is truly by page visits, session duration, and this type of thing. So the core success metrics for us for many years was 4x4. Basically, we wanted people to visit 4 times per week, 4 weeks in a row. And to us, that was sort of a measurement of an engaged new customer. We ran with that for many years, but then at some point we kind of hit the wall because we were seeing very high growth numbers, high, positive trends, week over week, month over month, year over year, but that really didn't translate to. So we saw, we lifted the top of the funnel here, discoverability, acquisition, engagement, great, but we didn't see that necessarily translate into paid, right? Paid subscription, renewed subs, and loyalty. So we basically realized that is not really a customer value based success metric. It was more of a vanity hook. Facebook does the same thing still today. Their success metric is L67, login 6 days out of 7. This KPI dictates their priority initiatives, things like the endless scroll as you scroll down. When you are offline, when you're off Facebook, you're not logged in, you will get a push notification, right, saying that, hey, someone in your network just posted or mentioned you, or just posted a new story, whatnot. So that kind of triggers you to go back and log in, right? The autoplay as you scroll down in your feed, any videos automatically play. All those prioritized initiatives were actually prioritized because they feed this success metric, L67. But what if this success metric is not the right metric to measure, right? It's not. What if it's sort of more of a customer hook versus a customer value, long-term kind of, testimonial of your success? So we realized that at LinkedIn, and we actually changed the success metric to 7x10, which is basically when you sign up during the 10 activation days after sign up, we want you to connect with 7 people, right? And what that meant was that now we're optimizing for a completely different set of initiatives. We realized that for new signups, if they don't have connection density, if they don't have enough relevant people they're connected to, they're not going to really get much value from the platform. We're not going to be able to, to recommend to them relevant opportunities. And so the 7x10 was a very good signal for us that we're actually providing them value. And that indirectly also translated it to more engaged signups, right? So now we optimized for things like profile completion. When people when a new person signs up to LinkedIn, the first thing they'll see in their onboarding and in their email welcome series, several sort of communications around how to optimize and complete their profile, so that and recommending to them relevant people, so that they can be more effectively hooked up with the right opportunities for job seekers, talent seekers, networkers, collaborations, content insights, or whatever it is that they're looking for. For SurveyMonkey, the deploy of the second survey was the cliff for conversion to paid. We noticed that when we looked at the internal data. So when people sign up, here the initiatives we would optimize for in the top of the funnel, we wanted people to sign up, but then to also deploy a survey, because we know that once they deploy first survey, that's when they're bought and they start understanding the value of the product, and that is much more customer value based success metric, which will then help our customers actually better continue flow through the downstream funnels, higher engagement once we help them deploy. So we prioritize initiatives like autofill templates that are relevant for them, where we already offer the question bank questions they just need to select. We make it easy for them. We give them tips and tools on how to create effective survey templates for their cohort. We really capture a lot of signals, internal and external signals, to personalize the survey deploy for them. Once they deploy a first survey, that's where we can really capture them very effectively for their value, to then continue to consider paid solution, right? And continue sort of downstream, all to, through the happy way to brand loyalty. For Trello, task management tool, they go by 2 by 7, basically during 7 activation days after somebody signs up to Trello. They prioritize initiatives to basically help new signups take 2 core actions, like create a board and invite to collaborate in the board, for example, right? And all the initiatives that are prioritized are stemming from the success metric, 2 by 7. So as you can see, it's very, very important to get number 3 right. Well, to get number 1, 2, and 3 right, right? But setting the right KPIs is critical to make sure that you're actually you're putting all your resources and budget to working on the right initiative, the right efforts for your customer value, so that you can really onboard them more fluidly downstream, from top of funnel all the way to brand loyalty, basically. If we're looking at it from a global perspective, you're kind of zooming out, and now we're saying, okay, well, now how do we translate that to not just my local customers, but really on a global scale? For me, global ready, we kind of need to look at international expansion in two ways. One is global ready, something that's more universal and applied to all. And 2 is geo-specific. Once I decide, okay, I'm now going to prioritize for specific markets, I'm going to invest further in a geo-fit experience. For me, it's in one word, global ready is about modularity, flexibility, modularity in platform, in product, and in people. What does that mean? Modularity in platform, really, and this is something you should do on the very seed level or seed phase startup level, right? That's when you can really do that effectively. When you're just building your platform infrastructure architecture, build it in a modular way. What do I mean by that? Imagine that you're actually having like local libraries, like drawers, where what we want to achieve, really it looks like, microservices, right? Not a global standard infrastructure architecture, but more sort of modular elements, so that when you want to iterate, when you want to, for example, dynamically generate the right onboarding experience or the right checkout to complete orders funnel, you want to introduce by geo, by your customer's address, by your customer's IP address, for example. You want to introduce the right payment methods or the right social testimonials or whatever, the right local stories, right? You want to do that by your customer language interface or by your customer geolocation, by IP address, in order to be able to dynamically generate the right experiences on the front end. Your platform infra needs to be modular and flexible, right? So that you're basically pulling the right role. In terms of product, modularity means having a product strategy that is very flexible and modular. So if I'm optimizing for a specific problem solving today, this is my value proposition today. Maybe tomorrow there is a new industry trend, or like what we're experiencing today, right? A world catastrophe, Corona, they need to pivot and reinvent or reposition their value proposition. Now I might be considering, a different way to do business, or a different way to help my customers achieve what it is their goals. So I need to have a very modular and flexible product strategy, and also I need my product to be able to apply personalization, to apply geofit customization as needed on key funnels, right? And that requires a lot of modularity on the back end and on the front end as well. Modularity on the people level is basically the organizational structure. Most companies are structured in vertical teams, right? You have the product team, marketing team, legal team, CS team, and so on. It's much easier to control and to manage. Even within product team, you have each product team owns a specific code base, and you have their code-based teams, right? So it's very verticalized. It's effective to manage. However, some efforts are extremely horizontal, right? International is a very horizontal effort. So international cuts across all functions. So when you think about global growth strategy, international strategy, it's not just about product, and it's not just about logged out pages, right? It's every product, but it's also, you need to dictate the strategy or align your strategic goals with key stakeholders in marketing, in legal, in customer support, ops, in data science, right? In all functions, cross-functionally within the organization. And in order to do that effectively, you need to be positioned, when you drive international efforts, be positioned in a sort of in a modular way. So that you're an entity, a modular entity within the company on a strategic level. You have visibility to the core objectives of your C-level, of your the heads of the company, and you're able to effectively align your OKRs, your KPIs and success metrics with key functional stakeholders' success metrics, right? So that you are all driving, you're effectively driving the international efforts, the priority efforts across the organization. And most companies struggle there because they are not positioned, they're not structured in this horizontal way. And so it's very difficult for international drivers to effectively drive international efforts across the company, across the organization. And if you're in a startup phase and you're thinking strategically, holistically about the vision of your company, it's very important to consider how can you actually enable a modularity in the org structure to enable effective drive of horizontal strategic efforts. So in one word, global growth strategy is about modularity. Okay, think about it that way. In three concepts, I always talk about these three concepts. I've always kind of driven strategies according to these are my three golden rules. It's basically begin at the end. So if we're looking at the holistic user journey, begin here at brand loyalty. When you think about who am I optimizing for, what am I optimizing for, how do I define and measure success, think about brand loyalty. Okay? And then work your strategy all the way back. Because when you envision what type of customers for what type of problem solving that you can address, right, that your business can serve, what is that case? Who is that customer, and what is that use case that you can impactfully provide solutions for, right? What is that stickiness level so that they don't just know about you and can use you, but they love you. They love you so much, they want to pay for you. They want to pay for you over and over again, retain, and they want, and they are so happy with you. They love you so much that they actually want to tell others to also join your ecosystem, right? So think about what that looks like for you, and then build your entire strategy backward from there. So this is number one. Number two, again, like I mentioned, think horizontally, not just vertically. And number three is be relevant, because again, be relevant is a sort of a golden kind of rule. Understand your customers within the ecosystem, within the context of their geo environment. So that means really integrating regional and cultural factors. What is the expected behavior of your culture, of your customers in a specific region? What are the regional factors, the mandatory regulation compliances, the payment methods, the cultural expected behavior, what do they care about? Understand your customers, understand their market, do that due diligence up front, and then, before you start building your value proposition and your product experience, right? Integrate those insights into your strategy. And really, when we think about the 5% versus the 95%, the 5% do that, right? So yes, it's more effort investment up front, but then you're building a more scalable and more sustainable strategy for your business. So again, we don't want a leaky bucket. We don't want to, it's very easy to put a big, if growth is our goal, many companies that have growth teams, their growth teams, work on top of funnel, they work on SEO or SEM. It's very easy to put a huge sign up button and increase your success metrics, sign up rate easily, but then you're getting a leaky bucket. You're getting people signing up, and then you're losing them at the bottom of the funnel. They're not sticking with you. So signups as a success metric is simply not enough. A lot of companies say, yes, we know it's not enough, so we're actually setting up a different success metric for growth, which is quality signups. Okay, quality signups. So we're investing in engaged new signups, people that will take like Trello's, 2 by 7, will take 2 core actions within 7 activation days, or even LinkedIn's 7 by 10, right? So you connect with 7 people during 10 activation days. But the way I see it, even that is not enough. Really, what you want to optimize for the true success metric for growth is retention. So every time you test, when you do A/B testing, user or market research, when you optimize for growth, optimize for retention, right? Think about what are those growth initiatives that will actually get your customers not just to join your system and pay, but renew subs. What does that look like? Again, and work your strategy backward from there. Prioritize your initiatives based on that. So we want to, with growth, optimize for quality customer acquisition, but at the same time, we also, which really means optimizing for new customers, but at the same time, we also want to make sure that our existing customers don't churn, they don't leave us, right? They're not dormant. So here, we want to increase new acquisition and retention, but also decrease churn, right? So this is kind of the very delicate balance we want to create, optimize for new customers, at the same time also understand our existing customers. And when we realize that some of them are dormant, what can we do to reactivate them? So before I move on to case studies and show a few examples that touch on those 3 core elements, any questions? You can type them into the question or chat. And Raquel can monitor those. So just wanted to let you know that you can think about, jot down questions or ping them in the system, in chat. And I'll by the way, address all questions at the end as well. So I'll take a look at it in a minute. I'll be talking half of the time, and then the rest of the time will be just answering questions. So let's look at some case studies. So let's look at what Uber did in Mexico City. It's Uber, from day one, they had a very global ready strategy. So they were not just looking at first, let's optimize our domestic market, and then once we have high adoption there, we can look at international expansion. No, they actually had a global. They kind of went citywide, globally in parallel at the same time from the get-go, and they looked at the headroom remainder. What the growth opportunity they had in major cities around the world. And what they did in the platform infrastructure architecture is they did something very interesting. They actually, this is kind of what I talked about in number one, they created a modular platform infrastructure architecture. Basically, they have an option, they have hubs in many different cities around the world, and where they have product and marketing people, customer support people, as well in sales. And they have a system where dynamically anyone in their local hub, so if I'm a customer support or a salesperson sitting in Mexico City Uber office, I can go to the platform and I can say, you know what, I see that in my region there is a higher demand for Uber X. In the US, Uber Pool is the preferred choice, but actually, in Mexico City is actually Uber X because it again ties up to some cultural expectation with sort of the minibus pickups and people's perception for Uber X was that this is close to that option. So they're able to wherever Uber folks are based on, wherever city, they're able to go into the platform and dynamically change, adjust a feature. Obviously, there's some limits there, but they can adjust a specific feature, and that will dynamically generate that experience in their region. So it's very geolocation based, right? And that allows for to iterate fast enough and respond quickly to market needs, specific geo needs, fast enough before local competitors do. As you know, Didi is a big player that is also kind of starting to eat up market share in Mexico City, but Uber is still a strong player simply because a lot of it is because they're able to iterate fast enough to local demand.
Okay. We have questions, Talia?
Yes.
Yeah. Mauricio is asking for tools for funnel acquisition.
For funnel acquisition?
Yeah, tools for funnel acquisition.
What do you mean by funnel acquisition?
Mauricio Navarro. Mm-hmm. And tracking.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, A/B testing is a very good, well, there are different things. So if you have a website, of course, hooking it up in the back, hooking it up with Google Analytics is kind of mandatory, it's kind of key, right? So that you can, have daily pulse, right? And you can get the digest insights, reports, and dashboards. You can set up dashboards so that you can get ongoing signals, implicit signals of your visitors, drop-off rate from the page, session duration, how many people clicked, what funnel, all those different signals. So Google Analytics, one. Number two, A/B testing is a very important method to apply. Try different iterations, what works better, what helps your customers take the action design for the page. Of course, quantitative, qualitative user research, right? Surveys or interviews. You can also do, sort of explicit signals in product where within the product itself, for example, if it's onboarding or every time you put a form, you can ask them, right? During the onboarding funnel, you can, it's very important to actually ask so that you can personalize as much as possible. If you are explicitly asking your new customers, tell you their top interests or any specific pieces of information that are important for you to optimize the product experience for them, for their specific use case, right? So that you can start offering personalization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he asked for tracking your marketing and sales funnel.
Tracking your marketing and sales funnel. Well, yeah, so here again, you're looking at internal data numbers and external numbers, right? So external numbers would come from You can do, desk research. Right? It comes from whether it's if you need to, for example, look at the demographic, you're looking at sensors, you're looking at online data insights related to your industry and to the internet insights and whatnot. And internal data, you have your sales information, whatever CRM it is that you're using, Salesforce or have, other much smaller CRMs, right, that are probably a much more, better fits for you, HubSpot and others. So hooking up with internal CRM, following up with, that this is the biggest kind of, LinkedIn also has a sales solution and a marketing solutions for marketers and sales internal teams to gain, to be able to track their leads and conversion rates of their leads, kind of to track that funnel effectively, but then also to be able to personalize by specific use cases, right? So you can make sure that you're optimizing their the funnel for them, right? That they stay with you longer.
Okay. We have another question from Daniel. He would like to hear more about number 3, be relevant.
Yeah, so I'm getting there. Be relevant, really, personalization, relevancy algorithms look primarily at use case, all kinds of user research, user signals like gender, age cohort, industry, functionality, title, race, seniority title, things like that. It also looks at geolocation many times, but it rarely looks at the cultural expected behavior, right? So it doesn't really look at integrating regional cultural factors, which is what I specifically focus on. So this is an example. You're entering, let's say, a mobile-first country. I mean, Mexico or Latin America in general is a mobile-first country. So is Asia and Southeast Asia. So if you're going into Japan, which is one of the hardest markets to adopt for an external company, you want to look at the those regional factors. What does that look like? So you know that it's a mobile-first country. You know that so this will already tell you, okay, just by if you're a US-based company, for example, US is not a mobile-first country, and you're going into Asia or Latin America, it's very important to actually create an off-stack, lightweight mobile native app, for example. Even if you don't offer it in your domestic market, it's important in those markets to offer that. And when you do, it's really important to have the download the app right in registration, because if people didn't sign up on your native app and they signed up on your mobile, on your website, they're probably not going to show up later on, right? You need to capture them wherever they are. So if you're just, for example, a US market company, and you're just translating their experience to Japan or to Mexico, and you didn't, they didn't have download the app promo in Reg for the US experience, so that's not going to get translated, therefore not going to get launched in the new market, and therefore you're going to leave a lot of money on the table, right? You're not going to capture that market effectively. So this is an example for a regional factor that you're weaving into your strategy, where you're actually offering specific features or even building specific products that you're only bidding for a specific region. Also in Japan, for example, having not just a responsive, optimized mobile web, but actually building a mobile site, which would be consumed on the phone. So about 70% of consumers in Japan actually consume on the phone. So even having just like a lightweight mobile site, which is a light version of your logged out, because native is logged in, native app. But you want also a logged out experience of the website, but kind of a lightweight mobile site, not a mobile app. It's a mobile site, right? That consumers will use on their mobile phone, on their smartphone, is important. Also, for example, consumers in Japan. I'm just giving Japan as an example because it has a lot of different. It's a great example. People in Japan, use 4 different character sets, right? It's actually, if you've ever seen a Japanese person use a mobile phone, it's pretty incredible. So they have, they use Roman character sets for numbers. They use, of course, kanji for native character set, which is ideographic. They use hiragana for phonetics, and they use katakana for phonetics of foreign words, right? And they need to constantly flip. Can you imagine when you use your phone, constantly flip between 4 different keyboards, which is insane. Therefore, a lot of people there use Flickr, to help them very, very quickly switch from different keyboards. And if you ever look at somebody in Asia working, using their phone, it's like a magic trick. It's amazing. They're doing it so quickly. But knowing that this is sort of a regional and a cultural factor in these regions, it's important that will dictate your features, right? That will mean that you are now actually going to build autofill and selection and selection. So you're recommending, for example, if somebody starts to type, you're recommending basically having content relevancy, NLP, natural language processing, so that you can complete the sentences for them, and then they just select, right? They select, and you autofill as much as possible. The basically content recommendation systems is really, really important. And autofill of any form is really important for usability and thumb experience. Also, the way they consume content, it's very text heavy on their websites and apps. So it's the UI UX layout is going to look very differently than, you can't just translate the content into Japanese, let's say from English or from Spanish. You have to change the entire UI UX experience because the layout is going to be different. You're going to have to create sort of text boxes, because this is how customers in Japan or in Asia in general expect to consume their text-heavy content on the page, right? So now you're looking at design and functionality of the product experience looking completely different. It's much beyond language support, right? Another example is when I worked at LinkedIn, at that point, we'd already matured the core markets. So I prioritized emerging markets at the time. This is back in 2014. So I optimized for China, India, and Middle East, North Africa. And for China, we did exactly that. So I'm giving you now a case study example of how to integrate regional and cultural factors in your strategy, in your product strategy. So we looked at regional factors. The demographic is much younger. So for LinkedIn, the addressable segments are professionals and students. For us in China, this meant the 17 to 24 years old. So that meant, so now number one is who you're optimizing for. I'm optimizing for this age cohort. And that dictates the number one, the who I'm optimizing for dictates the what, right? Which means for LinkedIn, optimizing for the value proposition of entry-level and internship job seekers, right? Because that's what's relevant for this age cohort. In Germany, our age cohort is much older. It's the 35 to 45. So there, the value proposition is not entry-level internship job seekers. It's actually career leadership, right? How can you, oftentimes within the same company, career leadership to a more senior position. So very different value proposition that is dictated by who you're optimizing for. Another regional factor is that it's a mobile-first country, of course. So we did create a lightweight, off-stack mobile app, native app, that has a single value proposition. It's basically a job seeker app, okay? And we integrated it with all the local ecosystems. So obviously, for the social signals, the share and the comment, we cannot put Twitter and other providers that are simply, cannot function in China. So we did the APIs with strategic partnerships with Sina Weibo, Tencent QQ, WeChat. By far the WeChat integration in ABI, in address book import, when you just register, you sign up to LinkedIn and you import all of your WeChat connections. So, you know, that was by far the biggest cliff for us for growth. The biggest driver for growth in China was the WeChat integration in registration. And then, of course, all the social signals have the native look and feel connectivity with the local providers ecosystem. The UI UX design is very native. We implemented, you know, the quick, the QR codes, which at the time is very, you know, at the time this was not implemented in the US at all, but this is something that was relevant for China region. We also partnered with, you know, looking at cultural factors. Guanxi is a cultural concept that is huge in Asia. You cannot really do business in Asia without understanding Guanxi. And that is very much about trust and transparency, or let's say trust and reciprocity. So you want to onboard people, you want to establish their trust and reciprocity. So we partnered with Alibaba, and when you have, you know, you can, when you sign up, you can actually upload your credit score from Alibaba over to your LinkedIn profile, which was a very good, important signals. It's really what, you know, Chinese customers or consumers cared about in the professional scene. So that was a big improvement for us as well. So we did all of these different things, but we also did something else at the top, at the end, which many companies would not do rightfully, but we actually cannibalized our own brand, because one more regional and cultural factor is that in China, both government and consumers prioritize local brands. So we didn't go in as LinkedIn, which is a, you know, an external brand, because that would be a disadvantage in our brand positioning in the country. So we actually did not go in as LinkedIn at all. We chose a native name, Chitu, with a new logo. So this is not a, you know, transliteration of the name. It's completely a new brand name, just for that app. Chitu kind of ties to it's basically a war horse, a warrior horse in ancient China. So it's tied into the collective memory and instills sort of that brand bonds kind of connection. And that for us, in a way, was our Trojan horse, if you like, into China. Until today, I mean, today there's other kind of, I'm not going to go into it, but other restrictions that are happening there right now. But for many, many years, this was a very top ranking app with very strong adoption. That was our kind of entry into China. I'm not sure how much time do we have. Am I, ooh, wow, okay. So, okay, I want to make sure that that there's enough time to answer questions. So let me just say, okay, you know, at SurveyMonkey, I prioritized for UK and for Germany for different maturity levels, right? Different needs. So UK for us was a high maturity. It was an early adoption market because it's in English, and therefore just the market readiness, since it was more mature, dictated who am I optimizing for. It was more for existing customers because I wanted to really focus on brand loyalty. Since we already had brand awareness and presence and recognition, I wanted to optimize for brand loyalty and for retention. In Germany, on the other hand, it was a late adoption new market with a very low brand awareness. So there I was optimizing for new customers and for top of funnel. Here it's, you know, UK is downstream, bottom of the funnel, and Germany is the top of the funnel, really just discoverability and engaged new customer acquisition. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. Maybe just to mention one last thing here that is important is, again, I ran a lot of A/B testing by geo, but one thing that I noticed, you know, so Germany, for example, kind of weaving in a cultural factor. In Germany, consumers are extremely sensitive about data privacy, trust, and transparency, much, much more than in the US, right? So I tested actually introducing 2 explicit user data consents before CTA button that tell them exactly how we're gonna collect, use, and share their data. So it's extremely transparent, extremely accessible. And in fact, it's, they have to, it's opt-in. So they have to check in. I mean, they have to check the box in order for this sign up button to work, right? So in a normal scenario, this is totally counterintuitive. And in the US, it would for sure introduce friction in this flow. And I would never test it in the US. But I hypothesized that in Germany, I would actually onboard higher engaged customers with higher level of trust. And this actually proved correct. I don't think I don't have the test results here, but I can tell you that it was, we got a 10% incremental lift in new signups. But most importantly, if you remember what I told you at the beginning, I'm measuring growth, success metric is measured by retention or conversion to paid. So I'm looking at the downstream impact. So of those new signups through this funnel, actually about 48% of them actually converted to paid, right? So I think it was like about 40% of them deployed the first survey, which, if you remember, the deploy of the second survey is the biggest cliff for SurveyMonkey for conversion to paid. And then 48% of those, you going through this funnel experience, actually converted to paid. So this was a great example to show you that it's not one size fits all. And if you truly understand your customers and understand what they care about, their phobias and their goals and their expected behavior, and you provide that to them in the experience, you're onboarding higher trusting, new customers with a higher brand trust. Therefore, you can more effectively create that stickiness level all the way downstream to brand loyalty and brand bond. I'm going to skip and just really come here to this last point, where this is my most favorite quote by Maya Angelou, is that people will forget what you did, what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And if you could take one thing from this talk, is think about what is that stickiness brand bond element for the customers, for your customer segment, to create that brand bond, right? What does that look like for them? What do they, you really need to understand what button to press, right? How to create that very specific invoked emotion with your customers to love you. And it's beyond the functionality of the product. It's really understanding them in a very deep way, understanding what it is that invokes their emotion. For that, you need to understand them, and you need to understand them within the context of the regional environment.